The galaxy was full of stars, empires, and endless wars. Alien fleets clashed often, each one trying to prove they were the strongest. Most believed they had already seen everything: massive dreadnoughts, fast attack cruisers, even planet-killer weapons, but none of them had ever seen a Terran battleship. No one even knew what such a thing looked like. Humans were still thought of as newcomers, a small species from a small blue world, barely noticed in the grand halls of power. Many alien leaders laughed whenever the word Earth was spoken. To them, humanity was just a young race with fragile bodies, still learning how to survive among the stars. But one night in the silence of deep space, that belief shattered. It began with strange reports. Outposts along the border picked up readings they could not explain. A huge object, larger than any known ship, was moving quietly through the dark. It gave no signals, carried no banners, and answered no hails. At first, the aliens thought it was an asteroid, drifting without purpose. But when it changed course with precision, slowly, deliberately, they knew it was no rock. It was something alive, something watching. The alien fleet sent scouts to investigate. Their small ships approached cautiously, scanning the massive silhouette. Every reading made their blood run cold. The hull was layered with thick armor, built to withstand firepower they couldn't even calculate. Strange scars ran along its surface, like claw marks from forgotten battles. Symbols were painted across its side, crude but powerful, written in the language of a world the galaxy had long ignored. Terran Navy. The scout ships tried to get closer, but suddenly their systems flickered. Engines died, weapons went offline, even life support shuddered. A low hum filled the void, as if the ship itself was breathing. Then, without warning, the scouts were gone. No explosion, no debris, just erased from existence. The fleet never even saw the weapon that struck them. One moment the scouts were there, the next moment, emptiness. Fear spread quickly among the alien captains. Yet their admiral, proud and arrogant, refused to back down. To him, this was nothing more than human bluff. "They are weak," he said over the command channel. "We outnumber them 100 to 1. We will teach these Terrans what happens when children play at war." His words were confident, but his eyes betrayed something else. Doubt. Deep inside, even he felt it. That silence, that enormous shadow. It was not normal. It felt wrong, unnatural, as if the ship itself was waiting to strike. The fleet prepared for battle. Dozens of cruisers aligned their cannons, carriers unleashed wings of fighters, and destroyers locked onto the Terran ship. The void lit up with power as hundreds of energy blasts roared forward. The firestorm crossed the black sky, slamming into the human vessel with the fury of a sun. Explosions shook space itself, and then faded. When the smoke cleared, the Terran battleship was still there, untouched. Its shields hadn't even flickered. It had not moved. It had not fired. It simply remained, quiet and still, as if mocking them. The alien commanders looked at one another in disbelief. Nothing in their history had ever survived such an assault without damage. Even their strongest warships would have been shredded, but this Terran vessel had endured it like a mountain standing in a storm. Then slowly it turned. Its massive hull rotated, each movement heavy and deliberate, like some ancient beast waking from sleep. The alien crews felt it in their bones, the weight of something old, something deadly. They were staring at a predator hidden in the dark, and they had just poked it. A voice finally broke the silence. Not from their own fleet, but from the human ship itself. It was a deep transmission, distorted, carried across every channel. The words were simple, calm, but they froze every heart that heard them. "This is the Terran Navy. You have made your choice." The message ended, and the silence returned. For a long moment, no one dared breathe. Then, the battleship's side lit, up with power. Enormous cannons unfolded like the jaws of a monster, each one larger than an alien cruiser. The void glowed with energy, brighter, brighter, until the first shot was fired. A single beam cut across the stars, striking one of the alien cruisers. In less than a heartbeat, the ship was gone. Not destroyed, not damaged, erased. The space where it had existed was nothing but glowing dust. Panic erupted across the alien channels. The admiral screamed orders. Fighters charged desperately. Destroyers launched torpedoes. The fleet poured everything they had into stopping the Terran ship. But already, they knew the truth. The first time they saw a Terran battleship would also be the last. And yet in that moment, none of them understood the full horror. This was only the beginning. Humanity had kept their silence for so long, preparing, waiting, building weapons in the shadows. Now the galaxy's greatest nightmare had finally stepped out into the light. The alien fleet was in shock. They had fired everything: beams, torpedoes, plasma storms, and yet the Terran battleship floated untouched in the dark, like a mountain in a storm. No cracks, no fire, no sign of weakness. Only silence. The silence was worse than the battle itself. It was heavy, pressing into their minds, making even the bravest captains feel small. The alien admiral clenched his jaw. His pride refused to let him retreat. Retreat meant humiliation. Retreat meant admitting that humans, the species they had mocked for years, had built something far beyond them. He could not accept that. So he shouted across the fleet channel, his voice full of forced courage. Press the attack, overwhelm them with numbers that ship cannot hold against all of us. Obediently, the alien fleet moved. Fighters swarmed forward, hundreds of them, weaving through the stars like angry insects. Bombers armed with heavy torpedoes formed attack runs. Cruisers spread wide, flanking from both sides. Carriers launched wave after wave. The sky lit up again with energy. This time even brighter, a storm of weapons designed to crush any foe. But the Terran ship didn't move. It waited, like a predator watching prey struggle in vain. Then, just as the first wave of fighters closed in, the battleship came alive. Panels on its sides shifted. Hidden bays opened, and out of them poured swarms of human drones, small angular machines with glowing red eyes. They moved with deadly precision, faster than the alien pilots had ever seen. The fighters barely had time to react before the drones tore through their formations. Explosions lit the void as squadrons were shredded in seconds. Pilots screamed into their radios, begging for orders before their voices cut off into static. The bombers never reached their target. Long-range cannons locked onto them, firing bursts of energy so sharp and accurate that entire wings vanished in one shot. Cruisers tried to flank, but every time they moved, the battleship rotated slightly, always turning its strongest weapons in their direction. It was not clumsy. It was not slow. It was deliberate, like a chess master moving pieces, with absolute control. Inside the alien command ships, fear spread. Officers who once mocked humans now whispered to one another. How? How can they have such power? We never saw this in their records. Some believed it was magic. Others thought it was stolen technology from extinct races. But the truth was far simpler and far more terrifying. Humans had prepared in silence. While the galaxy dismissed them as weak, Earth had built monsters in the dark. The admiral watched his fleet collapse. His pride screamed at him to keep fighting, but his survival instincts begged him to flee. He had underestimated humans. Now his people would pay for his arrogance. All ships, regroup, he shouted. Form a defensive wall. The fleet tried to obey, but already panic had broken discipline. Some captains turned their ships to run, abandoning the battle. Others fired blindly, desperate to hit anything. The space around them turned chaotic, a graveyard in the making. And through it all, the Terran battleship advanced, slowly, steadily, like death itself. Then for the first time since the battle began, it spoke again. The voice was cold, without emotion, carried across every channel. Resistance is meaningless. You attacked first. Now you will learn the price. The alien admiral's blood ran cold. This was not negotiation. This was judgment. And the execution had only begun. The Terran ship's main cannon charged, glowing brighter and brighter until the light filled the stars. The aliens braced themselves, shields raised, weapons primed. But when the shot came, it was not just power, it was precision. A single blast tore through the Admiral's flagship's shields as if they were paper. The mighty vessel split apart in a flash of light, breaking into molten fragments that drifted silently into the void. The Admiral didn't even have time to scream. His death sent a shockwave through the fleet. Discipline shattered completely. Some ships tried to ram the Terran vessel in desperation. They were torn apart before they got close. Others attempted to flee at maximum speed. The battleship tracked them with cold accuracy, cutting them down one by one. But then, something strange happened. The Terran ship stopped firing. It powered down its weapons, leaving only the glowing scars of destruction behind. For a moment, the galaxy held its breath. Survivors froze, unsure if it was mercy or something far worse. The battleship rotated once more, its shadow passing over the burning wreckage. Then, as calmly as it had arrived, it turned and drifted away, leaving silence in its wake. It didn't chase the survivors, it didn't finish the kill. It simply left as if the message had been delivered, and it had. For those who lived through that night, there was no more laughter about humans, no more arrogance. They carried the story back to their people, voices shaking as they spoke the words. The first time we saw a Terran battleship was also the last. But deep inside, they all knew the truth. That was not the last. It was only the beginning. Humanity had shown a glimpse of its hidden strength. And next time, there would be no survivors at all. The survivors drifted in silence, staring into the black void where the Terran battleship had disappeared. Wreckage floated around them, burning fragments of proud warships that once formed the galaxy's strongest fleet. Sparks flickered from broken hulls, bodies floated, silent and cold. The survivors were alive, but none of them felt victorious. They had seen something no one in the galaxy had believed possible. Fear was heavy on every ship. Captains whispered to their crews. Engineers stared at melted consoles, wondering how a single human vessel had turned an entire fleet into ash. Pilots who had once bragged about skill now sat pale, hands shaking. Some even removed their flight helmets, swearing they would never step into a cockpit again. The story began to spread. Distress calls, broken transmissions, desperate warnings. They raced across the galaxy faster than light. At first, many rulers dismissed them as lies. They thought the survivors were exaggerating. No single ship could destroy an entire fleet, the leader said. It is impossible. But as more fragments of data arrived, wreckage patterns, black box recordings, scrambled audio files, the truth could no longer be denied. The galaxy began to whisper the same question. What have the humans been building in silence? Some claimed the battleship was a myth, a trick made to scare them. Others said it was an ancient weapon humans had stolen from a lost empire. But the most terrifying voices whispered something else. That humans had built it themselves, piece by piece. While the rest of the galaxy mocked them. And if they had built one, how many more were waiting in the dark? In the great halls of alien governments, panic grew. Senators argued with generals. Merchants closed trade routes to Earth. Even the criminal cartels of the underworld suddenly refused to smuggle near human borders. Fear had spread like a plague, stronger than any weapon. Meanwhile, back at the site of the battle, the wreckage told its own story. Human salvage drones returned, moving through the debris like silent hunters. They scanned the ruins, collected fragments, and erased any trace of Terran technology. The survivors who still lingered watched in horror. It was as if humans had come not only to destroy, but also to control the memory of destruction. The drones made sure nothing useful remained. The galaxy would remember fear, but never understand how the weapon truly worked. One alien officer who had lived through the massacre wrote in his log, "We thought humans were fragile, but their strength is not in their bodies. It is in their patience." They waited. They listened. And when the time came, They struck like predators that had been stalking us for centuries. His words would later spread far and wide, repeated in whispers across the galaxy. Even the mightiest empires felt their power weaken. Races that once bullied smaller species suddenly grew quiet, careful, no longer laughing at humans. The warlords of distant systems looked at Earth with suspicion, then with caution, and finally with dread. Because if humans had one battleship like that, perhaps they had more. Perhaps entire fleets of these silent giants waited beyond the stars, cloaked in shadow, waiting for anyone foolish enough to provoke them. But the fear ran deeper than just military power. There was something unnatural about how the Terran ship fought. It did not attack in chaos. It did not fight with emotion. It moved with calm, deliberate precision like an executioner carrying out a sentence. The survivors described it the same way. It felt alive. Some swore the ship itself was intelligent, a machine with a mind of its own. Others whispered that it carried thousands of hidden human soldiers inside, each one bred for war. No one could prove it, and that made the fear worse. Back on Earth, no celebration was heard. There were no public parades, no great announcements. The humans remained silent. Their governments gave no explanation, their leaders no speech. They did not boast, they did not threaten, they did not claim victory. The galaxy strained for answers, and got only silence. And that silence was the loudest warning of all. Soon, rumors began to grow beyond control. Traders in starports told stories of Terran fleets moving unseen. Miners swore they spotted huge shadows drifting past asteroids larger than cities. Refugees claimed human ships had appeared and then vanished without firing a shot, leaving only terror behind. Each story was different, but each carried the same message. The humans had risen, and they were watching. The fear changed everything. Old alliances collapsed as species began asking themselves, if the Terrans could destroy a fleet without effort, what chance would anyone else have? Even empires that had ruled for thousands of years started to plan retreats, moving their borders away from human space. Some leaders even sent secret envoys to Earth hoping to beg for peace before it was too late. And yet no answer came. The humans remained silent. The galaxy had always believed humanity was weak, but weakness had been a mask. The mask had now been removed. And what lay beneath was something the galaxy had never prepared for. They had laughed at Earth. Now they trembled at its shadow. For those who had seen the Terran Battleship with their own eyes, the nightmares would never fade. They saw it in their dreams, black, scarred, silent, and unstoppable. They remembered the voice that spoke only twice, calm, cold, final. And they knew one terrible truth. The first time they saw a Terran battleship was also the last. The galaxy was restless. Fear had spread like a fire, but fear does not unite. It divides. Some empires wanted to surrender to humanity without ever fighting again. Others whispered of alliances, desperate to form a wall against Earth. But one faction, the proudest and most arrogant, refused to bow. To them, fear was weakness, and weakness could not be tolerated. So they gathered everything, every ship, every weapon, every soldier who could still fight. From the frozen moons of the outer rim to the great shipyards near dying stars, they called their fleets together, hundreds of warships, thousands of fighters, entire armadas built over centuries of conquest. They swore that if humanity thought it could rule through terror, then this battle would break that illusion. This would be their last stand against Earth. The fleet gathered in a sector far from human space, a place chosen carefully where they believed the Terrans would come, hunting them as predators always did. They prepared traps, layered minefields, hidden cannons embedded into asteroids. Every advantage of terrain, every trick of war, set and ready. Their leaders stood tall, giving speeches of courage. "We will remind the galaxy who rules the stars," they declared. "Humans are only one species, one ship. Against us they will fall." And then silence. The waiting began. Days passed. The tension grew. Soldiers sharpened weapons they knew they might never use. Pilots checked and rechecked their fighters, hands trembling but steady. Captains stood on their bridges, staring into the void. No one admitted it, but they were all asking the same question. Would the Terran Battleship come? When it did, no alarm sounded. No early warning systems detected its approach. It simply appeared, drifting into the sector like a shadow sliding across the stars. It was alone, just one ship against thousands. Yet the moment it arrived, silence fell across the armada. Even the bravest warriors felt their throats tighten. For deep inside, they all remembered the stories, the survivors' whispers, the nightmares of fire and silence. The command was given. Attack. The void exploded into chaos. Fighters swarmed, filling space with trails of light. Cruisers fired beams strong enough to cut moons in half. Missiles streaked across the battlefield, guided by precision computers. The traps they had built, mines, cannons, hidden ambushes, all unleashed at once. The sky turned into a storm of fire. And through it all, the Terran Battleship advanced. Slowly, patiently. Its shields glowed faintly, rippling as it absorbed wave after wave. Nothing broke through. Nothing slowed it down. It did not rush. It did not panic. It moved like a hunter, walking calmly into a cage of prey, knowing the bars could never hold it. The alien admiral gave desperate orders. He ordered ramming ships forward, massive vessels loaded with explosives, designed to sacrifice themselves in close-range detonations. They charged at the battleship, engines burning. For a moment, hope flickered. Perhaps numbers would succeed where weapons had failed. But then the Terran ship revealed a new horror. From hidden bays, enormous rotating cannons emerged. They fired not beams, but storms of kinetic rounds, thousands of solid slugs moving at impossible speed. The ramming ships disintegrated before they ever touched the hull, shredded into clouds of molten debris. The admiral's heart sank. The weapon wasn't just powerful, it was merciless. Every counter, every tactic, the Terran ship already had an answer, yet the fleet fought on. Pride demanded it. Honor demanded it. They threw themselves forward, even as their numbers burned away. Squadrons vanished in flashes. Cruisers split apart like glass under a hammer. Massive carriers turned into fireballs, their fighter bays exploding before ships could even launch. The sky filled with wreckage, a graveyard forming in real time. The alien admiral watched from his flagship, his face pale, his hands trembling. All his plans, all his traps, all his fleets, nothing had worked. He realized then that this was not a war. It was an execution. Humanity had not come to fight. Humanity had come to end them. His final act was desperation. He ordered his flagship to ram the Terran Battleship, the largest vessel of their fleet, armed with weapons enough to crack a planet's crust, surged forward. Engines roared, shields flared, every weapon fired at once in a last scream of defiance. The Terran ship waited until the last possible second. Then a single beam, brighter than a star, lanced outward. It cut through the flagship as if it were made of paper. In an instant, the admiral and everything he commanded were gone, erased, just like all who came before. The battlefield fell silent. The surviving ships froze, paralyzed with terror. They had no admiral, no command, no hope. And then, the Terran battleship did something no one expected. It stopped firing. It floated among the wreckage, weapons still glowing, but it did not strike the survivors. Instead, it turned slowly, scanning the battlefield. Every crew held its breath. Would this be mercy, or was it a warning? Then came the voice again, calm, cold, final. You fought, you lost. Remember this. There will be no next time. And with that, the Terran battleship turned and left, its engines burning a trail of silent fire into the dark. The last stand of the galaxy's proudest fleet had ended in silence. The battlefield drifted in silence long after the Terran battleship had gone. Wreckage floated endlessly, a graveyard of twisted steel and shattered pride. Fires flickered weakly inside broken hulls before fading into darkness. Survivors sat frozen at their controls, unable to believe they were still alive. They did not feel like victors. They did not even feel like soldiers anymore. They were witnesses. Witnesses to something too large, too terrible to ever forget. When the survivors limped back to their home systems, they carried more than scars. They carried a story that spread faster than light. Across every planet, through every outpost, in every smoky starport bar, the words were whispered. The first time we saw a Terran battleship was also the last. No detail needed repeating. No explanation was required. The name alone was enough. Terran Battleship became more than a ship. It became a warning, a shadow in every council chamber, a ghost that haunted admirals in their sleep, a nightmare painted on the walls of power. The galaxy tried to hide its fear. Leaders stood before their people, their voices strong, but their hands trembled. They told their citizens, "We will rebuild. We will be ready next time." But everyone knew there would be no next time. Against such power, preparation meant nothing. Some species collapsed entirely. Empires that had stood for thousands of years tore themselves apart, their people too afraid to face what might come. Others sent envoys to Earth begging for peace, desperate to sign treaties that offered submission before destruction. But humanity gave no reply. Their silence was worse than war. The humans did not boast. They did not demand. They did not explain. They left the galaxy to drown in its own fear. That silence made them more terrifying than any speech, any threat, any declaration. Silence meant mystery. Silence meant uncertainty. And uncertainty meant terror. Rumors grew like wildfires. Merchants swore they saw massive shadows slipping past trade routes, ships larger than cities. Miners claimed entire fleets of unknown vessels drifted near asteroid belts, watching. Refugees said human warships appeared in deep space, silent, and still, then vanished without firing a shot. No one could prove the stories, but no one doubted them either. Fear began to reshape the galaxy. Trade routes shifted away from Earth's borders. Colonies were abandoned rather than risk being too close to the humans. Even pirates and smugglers, once fearless, swore oaths never to raid near human space. Whole regions fell quiet, their stars dimmed not by distance but by dread. And still the humans remained silent. Scholars tried to understand. They pored over records, searching for clues. How had a young race only recently stepping into the stars created a weapon no one could match? Some believed humanity had uncovered ancient technology. Others claimed they had made deals with forces beyond comprehension. A few whispered something even darker, that humans had always been this way, predators hiding their claws until the galaxy grew careless. But one truth became clear. Humanity had never asked for respect. They had taken it. For the survivors, the memory never faded. They woke in the night sweating, hearing again the voice that had spoken so calmly. Not angry, not triumphant, just final. You fought. You lost. There will be no next time. That sentence replayed in their minds again and again, until it became part of them. In the centuries to come, alien children would sit around fires and whisper the legend. If you travel too close to the humans, their battleships will find you. If you mock Earth, the Terrans will come in silence. Entire cultures built superstitions around avoiding human space. Some even prayed to Terrans as gods of destruction, hoping prayers might protect them. And the most chilling part? No one ever saw another Terran battleship. Not one. The galaxy did not know if that first ship had been alone, or if an entire hidden fleet slept in the dark. The uncertainty was unbearable. For every empire, every commander, every ruler, the fear was the same. What if there are more? Generations passed, but the silence of humanity remained. They expanded slowly, carefully, never announcing their strength, never revealing their true numbers. The galaxy could not decide if the humans wanted peace, or if they were only waiting for someone to be foolish enough to test them again. But no one ever did, because in the end, the galaxy understood a truth older than stars. Some predators only need to show their teeth once, After that, the memory of fear does the rest, and so the legend lived on. The first time they saw a Terran battleship was also the last.